Hello everybody and welcome to my December wrap-up. This is a little bit later in the month than I typically make these wrap-ups, but I really wanted to use the first week of January to go through some of my 2021 wrap-up style videos. So you have now seen my most surprising reads of 2021, my most disappointing reads of 2021, and then my favorite books of 2021. But now I'm just going to give you my December wrap-up, talk about the books that I read in the month of December. I think that I had a pretty successful December. December is usually quite a low reading month for me because it is a very busy month, as I'm sure it is for lots of other people. But the use of audiobooks, which is something that I had never listened to in the past, did kind of bump up my December reading a little bit because a lot of the work that I had to do in December is kind of busy work, like wrapping presents and wrapping presents. There's just a lot of wrapping to do in December. A lot of cleaning, making sure that your house is ready for guests to come over and all that kind of stuff. So December required a lot of mindless kind of repetitive tasks, and that served very well for listening to audiobooks. So thank you to the audiobooks for allowing me to read more this December than I typically would. I had a really good reading month. Some of my favorite books of the year I ended up reading in December, which is why I wanted to wait until January to get those videos out because I knew that I had a really stacked TBR this month. But I did really well. I read a lot of the books that I set out to. There were a lot of buddy reads that I had to keep up on, and I was happy to be able to meet a lot of those goals. But for the month of December, I just have my reading journal here because it's been too much. I can't remember. Usually I just remember these things, but I am at my limit right now. I have read 9 books in December, and we'll just go through them in chronological order because I'm just going to flip through this reading journal and read them out from the page. The very first book that I read of the month was The Hogfather, book 4 in Terry Pratchett's Death series. I did a reading vlog about The Hogfather and put up kind of us decorating for Christmas and also me reading the book or listening to the book. This was absolutely delightful. I read the book and then watched the BBC production of The Hogfather, which was also phenomenal. This follows Death as he takes over for the Hogfather, who is kind of the stand-in for Father Christmas or Santa Claus, and it is hilarious. I think, for me, soul music, I think still beats out The Hogfather by like a hair because I loved soul music. It was so, so good. But this is so funny. I think I will either reread it or re-listen to it at Christmas time every year because it was a delight. I would love to read this with the kids. I think that they would get a real kick out of it as well. I have really enjoyed my time with Death. The final Death book is going to be on my TBR sometime in the next couple of months, and then I'll move on to other Discworld books, but I can see why The Hogfather is such a fan favorite. It is an absolute riot of a book and has a lot of really interesting things to say about belief and purpose. Terry Pratchett always manages to kind of get those things in without you really realizing it or without it coming off as preachy. So The Hogfather, top tier Discworld book for sure. Had a great time reading it. After The Hogfather, I read a novella, Elder Race, and this was absolutely Alan's fault over at the Library of Alexandria because he read Elder Race, which is by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and gave it a glowing review. And because it was so short and because he loved it so much, I kind of polled a couple of people on the Discord and said, we should read this. This would be a great buddy read for December. Everybody's really busy this month. We didn't have an official buddy read to read together. We had read Children of Time together in November and everybody really liked it. So I was like, why not? Why don't we do Elder Race? And so a group of us read this together and opinions were kind of mixed, actually. I fell a little bit in kind of the middle of the ground. I gave it a 3 stars. And I think it's just because a lot of the things that were really cool about Elder Race, which is a novella that is set on a world where there is kind of ancient technology that we know was more advanced than the society that lives there currently is. And there is a man known as kind of like the wizard who lives there. And it's about this wizard coming into contact with one of the inhabitants of the world. And we get the story from both their perspectives, and because they grew up, so we find out that this wizard is kind of a remnant from the human society who lived there, and because they grew up in such vastly different societies, their means of communication, the way that they communicate information with each other is very different, and that's a really cool part of the story. But it is something that I just saw Tchaikovsky do in Children of Time. But in Children of Time, I had a full-length novel to kind of follow that trope, to see how he develops his worlds and his societies. And so I really liked Elder Race, but I think if I had read it before I read Children of Time, I would have liked it even more because some of it felt a little bit, not even recycled, but it was just very similar themes, very similar messages, and I liked it a little bit more in Children of Time. So if you're looking for a short novella to put on your TBR, I still think that this is worthwhile, especially if you haven't read any of his other books, because he's quite inventive. I really like his ideas, and I will definitely continue to read his books into the future. The third book that I read for the month was The Well of Ascension, and I did a full review for The Well of Ascension. I don't think it was spoiler free. I think it was a spoiler review because it's book 2 of the series, and I really wanted to talk about some of the things that frustrated me. And this one was not as favorably received by me as the first book in the series, so I gave this one a 3.5 stars. I think that the things that Brandon Sanderson does really well in the Mistborn trilogy, which are the really intricate plotting, the cool magic system, the world building, he does those so well. There was some really cool combat in this book that made me think of Attack on Titan, which has some amazing action sequences that I really love. And I am now convinced that Mistborn would be a phenomenal anime. I think that it would be really hard to adapt it into a movie, not because it doesn't feel cinematic, it does, but because just the way that the magic works and the way that people move around, I think it'd be really difficult to get that across, to convey that as well in a traditional film as it would in anime. I think that this just kind of screams for an animated adaptation, and I personally would love to see it. I struggled a little bit more with the characterization in this book. There was a character who was introduced that I did not like at all. I did not understand the function of this character. I do understand at the end of the book the reason that they ended up in there, but I think that that could have been accomplished in a variety of other ways. So I was just not happy with a lot of the character development. I still don't feel incredibly emotionally invested in the series. I feel intellectually invested. Like, I want to know, just out of curiosity's sake, what happens. I know there's going to be this kind of like big epic Sanderlanche at the end of the trilogy, and I am looking forward to that, but I just don't feel as connected to the book or the characters as I had hoped I would when I set out reading them. But still have plans to continue on with Brandon Sanderson. I will take a little pause in Mistborn, I think, and try Era 2 closer to when the new book is being released. But I do really want to read the Stormlight Archive because everybody says that his character work kind of levels up in that series, which makes sense because he's growing as an author. Book 4 is Mythos by Stephen Fry. So this is a book that I actually started at the beginning of the year, and I had started it on audio and got almost to the very end, and then the audiobook got taken back. So I had had it from the library, and it got taken back from me, so I never ended up finishing it. And it was the end of the year. Like I said, I had a lot of wrapping to do, and I thought, well, I could get that audiobook back now, and I could just listen to it again because it was really pleasant to listen to, and I can do it again and kind of get through it. So I got it back from the library and listened to it and had a really good time. Sorry, it's really dry here and I had to take a coughing break. I just watched Howl's Moving Castle with the kids, and if you have seen Howl's Moving Castle, there's a dog in that movie who wheezes, and I feel like that's how I feel right now. It's like, if you have seen the movie, then you know what I mean, and that is how I feel like my breath is coming in right now, but I apologize for the coughing break. But yes, Mythos. I think that Stephen Fry did a great job in translating these myths so that they are accessible to people who may not be familiar with them, but also enjoyable for people who do have a foundation in them and just want to see them presented in a slightly different way. I will continue along with this series that he has put together. So these were kind of like the foundation myths for the foundation of the various gods, the demigods, some of their children, and I believe the next one is heroes, and that will focus on some of the heroes who are a little more famous in terms of the kind of Greek pantheon. I'm assuming that we're going to hear from Heracles, and there's going to be a bunch of them that we hear from, and I'm really looking forward to reading that. I feel like I did look it up, and I think it's like there's 3 or 4 people maybe that Heroes is focused on, but regardless, Mythos is a really good listening experience. I enjoyed it and would definitely recommend it to anybody who's interested in Greek mythology. Book 5 of the month was Ship of Magic. And Ship of Magic, I talked about in the giant review that I did for it. I talked about it on my favorite books of the year. So I don't think I need to touch on it too much here, only to say that I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I think it is some of the best character work that I have ever read in fantasy, and I am absolutely kicking myself for not having started it sooner. It is one of the best fantasy books that I have ever read. I believe that if anything was ever going to come close to like the Dark Tower levels of fantasy in my mind, it is going to be Realm of the Elderlings. I can see this becoming one of my absolute favorite series ever. I just love the way that Robin Hobb writes. I love the way that she puts stories together. And I wish that I could throw my whole TBR out the window and just read Realm of the Elderlings from now on. That would be fine. I would be absolutely okay with that. Number 6 and 7 and 9 are all entries from the Dresden Files. So why don't we just get all those out of the way? At the end of the month, I was absolutely binging Dresden. I have done a couple of videos now about the Dresden Files. I am flying through them. They started off as these palette cleansers that I was doing like once a month or once every couple of months. And now I'm just addicted to the series. I want to know what happens so badly. I flew through these 3 books in the span of a week and really enjoyed them all. So those were White Knight, Small Favor, and Turncoat. And each time I read one, I thought, okay, well, now this is my favorite in the series. Nope, now this one's my favorite in the series. Oh, no, actually, now this one's my favorite one in the series, because I do think that they get progressively better. And of course, the next one that I am due to read is Changes, so I am looking forward to that. I have not given any of these a full 5 stars yet because there are still some things. I'm not incredibly nitpicky with the writing in Dresden. I think some of the things that I would probably be harsher on in other books really fit with that kind of noir aesthetic that Jim Butcher uses, but there are just some throwaway lines by Harry Dresden in every book where I'm like, God damn it, Harry, like you took this 5-star away from yourself because I just am very annoyed at you right now. And that definitely happens at least once a book, but I'm just having so much fun reading them. I think the characters get better and better as the series progresses. The way that the world is coming together, that the kind of internal politics of all the different factions, the way that that's playing out, it's just so enjoyable. It's going to be really hard for me to not just straight binge the rest of the Dresden Files. I do have other books that I need to read for my TBR, so I'm going to try really hard to read those, but I have been taken over by the Dresden Files, which is what people say is going to happen, and it is certainly what happened for me. Amongst those Dresden reads, so between book 7 and 9, the 8th book of the month for me was A Betrayal in Winter, which is book 2 of the Long Price Quartet. I gave this a 4 stars, so it was kind of slightly down from the first book, which I gave a 4.5 stars. I still really enjoyed it. A lot of the things that I liked about book 1, which were kind of beautiful writing, excellent character development, a very complex plot that is simultaneously slow moving, because this feels like a very kind of slow and intimate read, but also incredibly compelling. Daniel Abraham manages that balance very well. I think that the story feels like you're watching it play out in real time. So it's not something that you can race through, but you're just so compelled to keep moving along. I really enjoyed what happened with the characters in this story, and we are going to do a live show for this one. So I'm going to keep most of my thoughts kind of zipped up. I want to save a lot of the things that I felt really passionate about for that discussion, but I'm still enjoying this, maybe slightly less than book 1, but I have heard from Patrick and Alan, who are the 2 people that I know that loved this series, that book 3 is their favorite, and I'm really excited to get around to reading that this month in January. But that's it. Those are all of my books for the month of December. Like I said, a phenomenal reading month. I really enjoyed all the books that I read / listened to. And if every reading month could be as fruitful as this one, then I would be very, very happy. I hope that you all had a great December. I know that we're a little bit into January now, so Happy New Year to everybody. I hope that your reading month has gotten off to a good start, and I would like to hear what your favorite books that you read in the month of December were. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you with another video soon. Bye!